Coming up on market shares, President Biden has spent more money to address climate change than any of his predecessors, but why voters don't seem to care.
And some major investments for Central New York, our region, how business owners are preparing for Micron.
And the markets responding to this week's inflation report. You can see all down on the week. Hold on to your wallets because market share starts right now. A hot inflation report from Wednesday is derailing the case for a June rate cut. Welcome into Market Shares. I'm Bradley Hoppenstein.
And I'm Chilekasi. Adele. Peyton Spelliscy is away today. Inflation stays extremely stubborn, with consumer prices rising 3.5% in March.
With it staying sticky, it's now slowly becoming an important part of election season. President Biden continues to tout big numbers in the labor market, but inflation hasn't come down much since the end of the pandemic. And just as the president was starting to see better polling on the economy, inflation soared to its highest level in 6 months, Chile. Here's the president on Wednesday after the numbers were released.
We're in a situation where we're better situated than we were when we took office, where inflation was skyrocketing. And we have a plan to deal with it, whereas the opposition, my opposition, talks about two things. They just want to cut taxes for the wealthy and raise taxes on other people.
And mortgage rates also drifting higher this week. The 30-year fixed rate is now at 6.9%. A year ago, it was 6.3%. And now more questions about when exactly the Federal Reserve will drop interest rates. Many analysts still think it's going to be before the end of the year, but today's report will no doubt push that timeline back. Bradley.
Gas prices have also been climbing again. AAA says the national average is up nearly 14% since the start of the year, and it's just adding to those strained household budgets and Washington efforts to slow inflation. Analysts say this year is right on par with yearly trends. Prices typically jump in the spring as the weather gets warmer and more people start traveling. AAA, though, is still pointing out prices are higher this spring than previous years. But a spokesperson from the company says be patient as prices begin to moderate and close the gap between this year and last year. The bigger picture, though, is the higher cost paired with inflation that we just mentioned. It's still up, and that's even more true, especially as we head into the summer travel season, with a lot of other prices still up as well.
More trouble for Boeing. The company's airplane deliveries have dropped to the lowest number since mid-2021 as the company faces increased scrutiny following multiple safety issues. It handed over 83 planes in the past 3 months, most of them being Boeing 737s. Now, this is a big drop compared to the over 150 from the quarter before. Executives are saying that the company is slowing down its production to improve quality control and avoid so-called travel work. Federal authorities are also investigating the company after a whistleblower raised concerns over 2 jet models and said that Boeing struck back against him. The Boeing engineer alleges that the aviation company took shortcuts that could become, quote, catastrophic as the airplanes age.
As for airplane carriers, though, Delta swung a profit in the first quarter as we begin to approach peak travel season. The company is forecasting second quarter earnings of over $2 a share and said revenue could rise as much as 7%. Delta has slowed hiring, though, like other carriers and other sectors. It's now shifting its focus towards efficiency. The airline made almost $40 million, or 6 cents a share, in the first 3 months of the year. That's up from a loss of $363 million compared to this time last year.
Let's talk a little banking now. JP Morgan releasing its estimates today, and they were better than expected. The bank said that first quarter profit rose 6% to around $4 per share. This was boosted by its takeover of First Republic during the banking crisis last year. While trading revenue was down 5% from a year earlier, fixed income and equities dropped, analysts expected, by more than $100 million each. Looking ahead, though, the CEO voiced concern due to overseas conflict and inflation, but large banks are still expected to outperform smaller ones this quarter.
Chile, I know this is a story you've been following. The now former interpreter for the LA Dodgers, Shohei Ohtani, is now facing federal charges. He's accused of stealing more than $16 million from the baseball star's bank account used for sports betting. Officials say the interpreter made unauthorized transfers from Ohtani's account from November 2021 up to January this year. He's accused of making almost 20,000 bets, with his losses amounting to more than $40 million. During the time of the fraud, the contact information of Ohtani's bank account was changed to link to the interpreter's phone number and email. He also called the bank and identified himself as Ohtani to fool employees into authorizing wire transfers. Now, just thinking about all those losses, Chile, this has to be the worst sports bettor of all time.
This is a really complex situation, Bradley, but I think one of the interesting things, too, there's so many different ideas as to what happened. What we do know right now is that it seems like, from what we've seen from the feds, that Shohei doesn't seem to be directly implicated in a lot of this. So again, if that pans out to be true, again, this is just stuff with the courts. Definitely unfortunate if that turns out to be true.
We will have to see.
Yeah. Well, some rather grim news for former President Donald Trump. Trump media shares closed down by more than 8% today. The social media company's stock began public trading on the NASDAQ in the end of March with an opening price of around $70, which then soared to nearly $80 that same day. Now, currently, prices are coming in around $30 a share, a major dip. Shares have dropped almost 50%, wiping out billions of dollars in the company's market capitalization. Under the terms of a merger with a shell company that took Trump Media public, the former president cannot sell his shares for another 6 months, so it looks like he'll have to stick this one out and see where his company ends up.
You can bet he will sell those shares as soon as he can, though. Meanwhile, his opponent, the Biden administration, is now saying it will forgive over $7 billion new dollars in student debt. The latest round of loan cancellations announced earlier today is a result of the Department of Education's recent changes, which have made it easier for some specific groups of borrowers, like public sector workers, to qualify for loan forgiveness. It also launched a new repayment plan that creates shorter pathways to loan forgiveness for low-income borrowers. In total now, the Biden administration has canceled over $150 billion in student loan debt for over 4 billion people. Some big numbers there. That's more than 9% of all outstanding federal loan debt.
Let's talk election 2024. President Biden is campaigning for re-election, and he's working to win over a key block of voters, young people. We've been talking about it, right? A lot of people in the young group seem to be disillusioned. They don't really know who they're going to vote for between Biden and Trump. Well, our political analyst Luke Radel is here to examine whether his efforts are actually effective. Luke.
Chile, when you're the President of the United States and you're running for re-election, you have two very different jobs that come with two very different kinds of problems. Right now, Joe Biden is trying to solve two of the big problems on his plate at the same time that both involve gradual and potential existential change with no easy fixes. First, there's the campaign problem, as summed up by Politico this week, writing, quote, "Something weird is happening beneath the overall stability of the early 2024 polling, and it's either a sign of massive electoral realignment or that the polls were wrong again." And since we talk about trends all the time here on Market Shares, I'll put it in terms that you stock watchers can understand. Trump is on the rise with young voters. He's a hot commodity right now, while Biden, on the other hand, is on a downswing with young people, but is rising steadily among older voters compared to where he was just 4 short years ago, which is huge news because for generations, Democrats have cleaned up with young people, while Republicans have run up the numbers in the senior citizen crowd. One of the reasons for that switch is that Joe Biden seemed far and wide as a, well, very old man, to the point where he started off a major campaign commercial like this.
Look, I'm not a young guy. That's no secret. But here's the deal. I understand how to get things done for the American people. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Can we do one more take?
Look, I'm very young, energetic, and handsome. What the hell am I doing this for?
So, since Biden can't exactly change his age, he's trying to address the major problems facing young people. And climate change is definitely one of them. No, that's not a typo. Biden has in fact invested $1 trillion on this issue in a wide variety of areas. Let's take a look at some of Biden's accomplishments, including most notably the Inflation Reduction Act, which marked the largest investment in the environment in American history. Bradley, Chile?
And Luke now joining us at the desk. Luke, young voters are probably more important than ever before in this upcoming election. But with all these moves on climate, it's supposedly an important issue to young voters. With all these moves on climate, though, why hasn't President Biden been able to move the needle on young voters.
Yeah, it's a really interesting trend to watch. We would think that the climate change would be an important issue to young voters. It's going to be affecting them pretty soon down the line. But if you take a look at a Wall Street Journal poll of the issues that matter most to all voters, not just young voters, in this 2024 election, climate change is pretty far down on the list. Economy and inflation, the stuff we talk about here all the time, up at 35%, immigration at 25%, abortion and abortion rights at 10%, democracy in general at 6%, and climate change down to just 2%. And for an existential threat to our country and to our planet, you would expect it to be higher. So why isn't it higher? Well, it's because it's a very complicated issue that not a lot of people understand, including people that are supposed to be in the know about politics. I'm thinking of a clip of the ladies on The View on ABC. Let's take a look at what they had to say about climate change in light of the eclipse this week.
We've got a solar eclipse. We've got the earthquake. She ran down the hallway.
The rapture is here.
The rapture's here. And then also I learned that the cicadas are coming.
Cicadas.
Cicadas. All those things together would maybe lead one to believe that, either climate change exists
That's more
or
of the
something
point.
is really
Except
going
Earth is
on.
returning. Earthquakes are not at the mercy of climate change. It's underground. It can't. I don't think that's.
So as the voice of reason there, Joy Behar was pointing out, eclipses, earthquakes have nothing to do with climate change, but it is a problem far and wide in the electorate that people don't understand what the problem is with climate change.
Yeah, and Luke, what are kind of some of the trends moving towards young voters? Are they moving towards Trump? Are they, again, apathetic, just not wanting to show up at the polls at all? And if they are moving towards Trump, what has he promised on the issue of climate?
Yeah, it's been a complete flip-flop that we've seen in the polling of younger voters moving towards the Republican side of the aisle, Democrats becoming older and older, senior citizens moving towards Joe Biden. Donald Trump has promised to undo all of Joe Biden's accomplishments on the climate that we listed before. He wants to pull us out of the Paris Climate Accord. He wants to do a variety of things that I wouldn't think that young people would normally support, but they may just not be aware of what's going on, and that's Biden's job in the campaign to make them aware.
I think, no doubt, inflation and the economy easily going to be the two biggest factors this election season.
100%.
Luke Radel, thank you so much. After the break, we're going to take a look at the biggest market movers of the week. Stay tuned. You're watching Market Shares.
Well, Thomas, you've got prediabetes. But with more exercise and a change in diet, it can be reversed.
I've tried exercising. It just makes me hungry for bacon.
I love bacon, too. And who really likes to exercise?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody. So we're good?
What? Oh, you still have prediabetes. Big time.
Welcome to my house. Lately, not my happy place. Everybody's pretty tired of each other. The parents were not themselves. My little brothers were morphing into small creatures. The walls were closing in. Clearly, a case of too much family, too close, 24/7. And there's a lot of that going around right now. If this sounds like your house, try going someplace new. YourLifeYourVoice.org. You'll find lots of ideas to help you handle the family stresses of being confined to close quarters. YourLifeYourVoice.org. It might not get you out of the house, but it could help you find a little more breathing room.
Welcome back to Market Shares. We're about 14 minutes past the hour here. The market's just closing on the week, so let's take a look at how our major three indexes ended the week. All three in the red to end this week, and that's really a reflection of the inflation and CPI report released on Wednesday. And now, with the numbers still being high, that's pushing the Fed's rate cuts further in the distance, Chile.
Yeah, let's talk about the Dow, too. Sharp decreases today from JP Morgan and Intel. Intel could be suffering from the fact that China told its largest telecom carriers to phase out foreign-made chips. Also, we're talking about major earnings season for banks starting now, too. And let's talk about the Dow as well. There are a lot of fears that Iran is going to attack Israel. The U.S. was told by Iran to back off as well. The White House is also on alert. It says U.S. and Israel are on alert for a potential attack. And because because of that, we've seen oil prices spiking $90.60 a barrel for Brent crude futures, and the West Texas Intermediate crude futures $85.91 a barrel. That's the benchmark the United States uses.
Yeah, the Dow taking the biggest hit of the week. One important note from that CPI report on Wednesday, though, is the producer price index actually came in lower than expected. So that's a reason to think price growth will start to cool, but definitely not yet, as we saw this week. Let's get to some of our movers on the week. We're going to start things off here with Amazon. Now, we're looking at the broader picture for Amazon here. This is a 1-month chart, but you can see things are steadily climbing, up about 6% this month. It's up about 125%, though, since bottoming out at the end of 2022. It's been a big comeback, and it's been a big comeback in the tech side of Amazon. CEO Andy Jassy actually making some big statements to shareholders yesterday about, of course, AI. Amazon recently bought AI startup Anthropic for $4 billion, and now Jassy is saying the future of AI will run on Amazon. Even though they don't have any consumer products yet, like ChatGPT, a lot of businesses are using Amazon's models to hopefully make them some money. Delta Airlines and Pfizer are just two examples of businesses already taking advantage of Amazon's AI models.
Yeah, AWS too, it's cloud-based service, something that Jassy mentioned, but also it's something that's caused some concern this week. A jury ordered Amazon to pay $525 million to a Chicago-based firm for patent infringement. Again, this is over cloud storage as well. So again, there's some mixed news for Amazon going into this week.
And just one other note before we move on to Fubo for you. They're now sitting at around less than $2 away from hitting the 2 trillion mark. That's an exclusive club that we're going to see if Amazon can join over the next few weeks here. Let's talk sports media. Fubo
down, stock down around 7% over the last week. We won't see the Q1 earnings until next month, but it's important to mention what happened in New York State this week, right? Market share in the New York market, upstate New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, that could be affected as the provider dropped SNY this week, just a couple weeks after adding UDS Network, which shows the Yankees. So again, it looks like Fubo kind of made a decision as to which one they think is going to cost them less, but so far it doesn't seem to have paid benefits yet.
And Fubo, it was just a month ago they hit a record for paid subscribers in North America, and now the stock, it's taking a toll as people actually seem to be starting to move away from Fubo. And they're also facing pressure from that combined service that's going to be ESPN, Fox, and Warner, that combined sports streaming service. That's what a lot of people use Fubo for.
Well, they've also made their bread and butter on trying to become the network, the provider when it comes to regional sports networks. And now when you had all three in New York, you're taking one away.
All right, let's talk Costco real quick. Not one of our ordinary movers here, but they announced a rise in March sales and a boost to its quarterly dividend on Wednesday this week. Its sales, Chile, are almost 10% higher than this time last year, but the big thing that's bringing people in right now are those gold bars selling for about $2,400 an ounce.
Oh yeah, and the company is making an estimated $100 million to $200 million a year on 24-karat gold bar sales. And of course, there's a lot of consumer interest among inflation, economic uncertainty, so people are trying to have that hardback gold to keep their assets in check.
Yeah, and Costco stock moving higher as prices stay high because you buy in bulk, you save a little bit. That's what they're known for. All right, after the break, we're going to talk a little basketball. The NCAA Women's National Championship beat the men's for the first time ever in ratings, but that wasn't the case for the amount of ad money they pulled in. The future of the business of the tournament after the break.
You quit smoking and thought, that's that. But here's the thing about lung cancer. By the time you see the symptoms, it could be too late. But now, there's a new scan that can detect lung cancer early, when it's more curable. If you smoked, get scanned. Talk to your doctor or learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Hi, my name is Sadie Miller.
My name is Luke Brady. I go by St. Luke.
So this one I started with this guitar lick.
Welcome back. 2U, which is one of Syracuse University's online education providers, may have to file for bankruptcy or liquidate if it can't cover its nearly $9 million debt. Wow. This would leave SU and other universities to reconsider their partnerships with the company.
Now, currently, SU uses 2U for a variety of its online graduate programs, including Maxwell, Newhouse, and Whitman. The company is also at risk of being delisted from the NASDAQ and has been trading for less than $1 for the majority of the year. However, even if 2U goes bankrupt, it still will be able to operate by selling parts of the company or by being acquired.
To prepare for Micron's investment, Senator Chuck Schumer is giving $3 million to support Central New York ahead of the project. Market Shares analyst Ben Bashik explains how this money is also going to help local businesses in the area.
Just last Tuesday, New York State Senators Kirsten Gillibrand and Chuck Schumer announced $3 million of federal investment in Center State CEO and Syracuse University's Southside Innovation Center, two quickly maturing business incubators. Both the SSIC and Center State CEO have been prepping local businesses for the new estimated 50,000 jobs coming to Central New York by way of Micron technology. Just 9,000 of those will be Micron jobs. The other 40,000 spin-off jobs will be local businesses, some of which work with the SSIC, like restaurants, daycare services, teachers, and municipal workers, according to County Executive Ryan McMahon.
First wave of jobs, 5,000 construction jobs, local labor, project labor agreement, union jobs, non-union jobs. That's going to happen at the end of 2023, and we will have thousands of workers coming in because it'll be hard to fill those jobs. And these folks are going to need places to live. They're going to be bringing all their buying power with them. You're going to see lots of different residential and commercial development. Everybody that makes that Micron needs their materials to make their product, they are coming here too. And then their supply chain is going to come.
The $1 million dedicated to the Whitman School of Management, SSIC, will fund upgrades to internal infrastructure, help meet compliance with ADA accessibility regulations, and improve technology. Since 2006, the incubator has secured $1.4 million in loans, engaged with companies with gross receipts of $31 million, and helped 300 disabled or low-income individuals register over 70 businesses. The Onondaga County Clerk's Office registered 22 new Syracuse businesses in the first week of April alone. In addition to the initial $100 billion required for constructing the fabs, another $70 billion is needed for operational costs, along with $625 million allocated for water rerouting.
We are engaging industry in a spirit of collaboration, and they have been incredible partners. But as I said, I'm obsessed with protecting taxpayer money.
The total GDP impact for Central New York could total $15 billion annually over the next 30 years. Reporting from the Southside Innovation Center, I'm Ben Bassick, CitrusTV News.
Networking.
Hey, let's talk a little hoops now. The women's NCAA championship game drew a bigger TV audience than the men's title game for the first time in history. But despite the ratings blockbuster the women's tournament got, a small fraction of money from broadcasters. Joining us now, Market Shares analyst Michael Lamorte to tell us exactly why this is the case. Hey, Mike.
That's right, Chile. They don't call it March Madness for nothing. In the women's NCAA bracket, it was Iowa and South Carolina punching their ticket to the finals this year. And the Hawkeye sensation Caitlin Clark was a standout 30-point performance at home, grabbing their remote, having people at home grabbing their remotes to tune in. The women's final attracted nearly 19 million viewers on ABC and ESPN, and within the game's final 15 minutes, that number shot up to 24 million. Now that set records for the most watched women's college basketball game in history, doubling that of last year's 9.9 million viewers. But let's compare that now to the men's bracket. UConn collected their second straight championship in a row by defeating the Purdue Boilermakers 75-60. Now across all networks, the men's final viewership increased by 4%, but that was still around 4 million less viewers than that of women's. You can see now on your screen in recent years, viewership has definitely declined for the men's final, and to make matters worse, guys, their final in-house audience was the second lowest, right behind last year's. Bradley and Chile, we might be seeing a shift in tides here for the NCAA basketball March Madness tournaments.
Mike, I know one of the interesting things I saw earlier this week was the idea behind the women's game and the men's game in terms of stardom, right? In the women's game, you have Caitlin Clark, you have Angel Reese, you have notable names still like Gina Auriemma, Dawn Staley, Kim Mulkey. Whereas in the men's game, we've seen a lot of those guys from the golden age kind of step back. But how still did the men's final accumulate more money?
Well, Chile, I mean, that's a great question. You know, things are changing here, but it really seems like ABC, ESPN, who led that March Madness finals for the women's, broadcasted that out. They really underestimated the price to charge for advertisements for that women's bracket. The men's, they made $1.15 billion in 2023. 90% of that was coming from ad revenue, and that number surpassed this year. But going over to the women's, 2023, last year, they made $19.4 million, so that is a huge price differential. This year, though, they shot up. They made $25 million, and they did sell out their ads. But again, it was ABC that really underestimated the price per ad.
And Mike, we know that men's March Madness package is probably the most coveted sports media package. But ESPN, you know, they settle. They're with the women's side, but the women's side more ratings this year. What does this mean for next year?
Well, next year it's either they're going to shift the way that they charge for ads. Maybe they wait and see how much viewers there are to shoot the prices up. But really, I don't think they're going to underestimate for a second the amount of viewers that they have going into the next season. They will be raising those prices, and we might see the same amount of viewers for men's basketball than that there are for women's.
Changing tides in a new era indeed. Michael Lamorte, thank you so much. Coming up on Market Shares, Google releasing the top travel destinations for this summer. Where to book your tickets after the break.
Hey, look, it's those guys. Are you good to drive?
I'm fine.
How many did you have?
I should be fine.
You should be.
Go and step out of the vehicle for me.
See ya, buddy. Good luck. So turns out, buzz driving and drunk driving, they're the same thing, and it costs around $10,000. So not worth it.
Hey, welcome back to Market Shares. As the semester comes to an end, Google has come out with its top destinations for this summer. The search engine says the list reflects people in the U.S. searching on Google Flights for travel through June and August.
Number 1 on the list is London, followed by Paris, Tokyo, and Rome. The biggest change from last year is Cancun, which moved from number 2 to number 6. And some newcomers later down on the list, Chile, San Juan, and Madrid. Now Madrid, I know that's a popular study abroad spot because it's a really nice, fun place in Europe, but it's one of the cheaper locations to visit. What do you think about London, Paris, Tokyo at the top?
I feel as if Paris makes a lot of sense, especially with the Olympics coming up this summer. London, I guess, is kind of always there, but for me, it's always interesting as somebody who has only left the country once and doesn't do a lot of traveling. You know, my last family vacation was in 2016 down the shore, Wildwood, New Jersey.
Wow.
But we don't do a lot of it, so it's always interesting to see where people are going and why. But I think number 2, Paris, you can clearly see the direction there people are going with trying to catch a little glimpse of the Olympics.
So I'm going to pose the question to you. I'm sure if your answer was not Paris for the Olympics, where out of this list, where would you go?
That's a hard one.
Family trip.
I want to go outside. Can I go outside the top?
Let's do it.
Sydney, Australia.
I like that. I like that. I was going to say Tokyo just because I'm so curious about all the different cultures in Asia. If I could go to Japan or China before I die, I will be a happy man.
That's a good choice too, definitely.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for you this afternoon on Market Shares. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CitrusTV News and like us on Facebook. I'm Bradley Hoppenstein.
And I'm Chilekasi, Adele. Maria Ashkar coming up 4:55 to Citrus TV Now. And Ben Schiller, Katie Von Bassa with News Live at 6. Until then, we'll see you.